Well, we're going to do a spoiled review on
Check your pants, Mitch. Check
a
your pants.
TV show called Dr. Death.
Yes.
I reviewed it once in the podcast, but now we have all seen the show,
Yes.
and I've done extensive research into this. I don't know why I found this so fascinating.
I've done a bit of research into this. Not as extensive as you, but yes.
We repeat, a spoiler.
Yeah,
So-
lots of spoilers.
Spoiler.
So
Spoiler.
you finished the show, right?
I did. I watched
right.
the whole thing in its entirety.
Essentially, Dr. Death is a show about, well, this season is about a guy who's a neurosurgeon. He operates on spines and stuff like that.
It's perfect in every way.
Yeah.
Literally the best spine surgeon in the world.
But he had 28 patients total, and 23 of them had, like, everlasting, from somewhere between death
To
and, like, just chronic pain.
paralysis. Some
Yeah.
became paralyzed from like the chest or waist down. Several
Yeah.
were paralyzed from the neck down.
So he just was a terrible surgeon, and there's a lot of questions that were led to, like, how did he get to that position, you know? But we'll get into it. So let's start from the beginning, though. I was fascinated with the fact that he was a football player. Okay,
And not a good one.
have you ever met a guy playing football, Mitch, that just thought he could do it all, and no matter how hard he tried,
Practiced, weightlifted, just couldn't.
yeah.
Are you talking about yourself?
Well, why aren't you talking?
He's not.
I'm not revealing names.
Well, just you know, just without saying names, you got a story of something like that?
Well, no. I mean, I know people. I've known a guy like that.
Okay,
So a specific scene they reference is him in football practice while playing at a D1 school,
right,
where as a middle linebacker, he's supposed to hit the A gap to block the run.
right,
And pretty much stuff it at the line of scrimmage. And you watch, it's like, you know, the A gap is, from the defense's point of view, it's to the right of the center,
Mhm.
which every middle linebacker who plays knows, nail that hole as hard as you possibly can, puns intended,
right,
and stuff it.
right.
A lot of euphemism there.
So
But that's the whole thing. And you watch him in practice, and he keeps going left of center into what, the tackle?
No, he was running right into the center.
He's running right into the, I thought he was
Yeah.
running like right into like to the guard or whatever.
well,
Getting laid out.
he couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay?
And like they just show him doing it over and over and over.
It's not a hard thing to figure out.
a lot of it, and you know, the show obviously dramatizes, but from the podcast and the investigative journalists that talk about their investigations to create the podcast and the original story that the show is based off of, they're like, yeah, the guy would struggle in the spur of the moments to tell you his right from his left. You know, he probably had some crippling form of dyslexia or something like that. So that being said, like,
He shouldn't be a neurosurgeon and operate on people's spines.
but like the fact that he was in football and he had this, I'm going to work extra hard. He was there after training, you know, constantly running drills, constantly trying to do whatever he could to be the greatest that he could be. You know, I think it's like this American institution bred into us where that if you try hard enough, you can do whatever you want.
I will say in football and at the pro level, there are guys who did not have like 10 out of 10 for just pure physical football talent, just bequeathed upon them at birth. There are dudes who got, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, they were a 4 out of 10. But they got 9 out of 10 out of what they had.
Well, because
He was not one of those players.
depending on the position, you can learn how to do the stuff.
But if you just don't have it, if you don't have the size, if you don't have the mental capability to grasp the skills required, doesn't matter how hard you try, doesn't matter how good you are, you just can't do it. It's like what are we watching? Where just Joe Rogan, he's telling some fighter, like, because
It's time to hang it up.
yeah, because like some guy was like, you know, because he said this is the number one fighter in the world, and he's telling this guy that, you know, do you think that you could beat him? And he's like, I think you'd be surprised. And Joe Rogan's like, I think you'd be surprised.
I think you would be
yeah,
surprised.
and you know, he talked to this guy and he basically explained, like, it doesn't matter how hard you try, it doesn't matter, you know, what you do, what you can do, you just don't have you will never be able to have the physical capability to be the number one fighter in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, this guy was good. It's just he'd gotten older.
Right. And there's going to be somebody that comes in and is better than you, you know? So, like, in that guy, like, he credits Joe Rogan with, like, laying him straight and saying, you know what, he's right. I could have seriously destroyed my body if I kept pushing myself this far and whatever. And, you know, people need to hear those hard lessons. You know, I was a really fast runner in high school. You know, I could run a sub 5-minute mile, and I ran a 10-minute, 30-second 2-mile, fastest time I ever ran in my entire life. Okay, there's always a Jamaican Olympic runner that's running a sub 10-minute 2-mile. Yes. Okay, there's always somebody out there that's faster than you, and you know, so that was my life. It doesn't matter, and I would run until I puke. I'd run 6 hours a day. You know, all sorts of stuff, no matter what I could do. And I'd be great, but I wouldn't be the best. Yeah. And nobody gives a crap if you're not the best.
Yeah.
So there's a great story. It's a slight sidetrack, which I'll keep it very, very brief, of a person who, you know, physically and whatever does not foot the bill for what he has to do. And his name's Jack Lambert. And he's in the Hall of Fame right now as a middle linebacker. And he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers from 74 to 84 and was their middle linebacker, which middle linebacker weight, when you played, Mitch, is about what on average?
Like, I guess maybe the pros would be like between 215, 230 at the most.
Maybe some 250 guys.
Maybe some
stockier.
Well, that's more now. More nowadays, they'd be about that size.
So he was maybe 200 pounds.
Yeah.
As a middle linebacker, 6'5", second-round pick, showed up to practice, and they're just like, "Well, who's that guy?" When he got drafted, and it's like, "Well, that's our number 2 pick," and somebody's like, "Well, that's another wasted pick." But one of the most pure tacklers of all time. As a student of the game in defense and how to take people down, there was no one better. So it could be done, but in Dunch's case, he was.
See, that's the thing
good.
is like, you give everybody an opportunity. You know, you let them aspire, and maybe they'll surprise you, and maybe you'll have, you know,
that exception.
Yeah, like the Larry Bird kind of guy or whoever that's just like rises to the top despite all expectations.
Well, in these examples that we've kind of given. These people had either the smarts or the athletic ability. This guy, Dr. Dunch, he didn't have the smarts because, I mean, he would try really hard. He'd study. But when it came to physically doing the stuff, he was an idiot.
Yes, physically with his hands, getting involved and actually doing surgeries. I think that when it came to textbook stuff, he knew what to do. But that when the algorithm is
when the patient is in front of him and it's time for surgery.
Right. That's where, like, you need to rely on intuition and instinct, and you need to improvise and whatever, I assume, is what the 2 other neurosurgeons,
Dr. Henderson and Dr. Kirby.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they made it seem like, you know, like there's just some things that you can't learn from a textbook. You just have to feel it out. And that's what thousands of hours of training and surgeries while being monitored and all that other kind of stuff.
During residency and all that.
They're supposed to cover.
Right.
Which they talk about as residency. And what makes, you know, because they talked to Dr. Henderson, Dr. Kirby about how many surgeries they're supposed to have under their belts before they're even really on their own. Right. And it's over 1,000.
Right.
As pretty much an assistant. And then after years, they kind of get to run the show their own, but someone's watching them until they're allowed to be by themselves.
Like in the podcast, they explain.
He had less than
100. When you go to college, you get 4 years of pre-med, then you got your 4 years of, you can do 3 to 4 years of getting your doctorate. And then you have up to 15 years of monitored surgery. So you're not actually like being
as
a surgeon.
Resident, as an attendant.
If you go at 18, you're not cut loose until well into your 30s, you know, almost 40s before you're like the subject matter expert. I can do, you know, whatever I need to do as far as surgeries.
And say I've been in medicine for 20 years. I've done 5,000 surgeries or 6,000 surgeries.
This guy went to college. He graduated college in like 2000, I want to say 8. And
as a PhD and MD.
Yeah, and he was doing surgeries by himself in 2012. You know, super fast, like insane fast.
It shouldn't have happened.
It shouldn't have happened, and it did. And you know that I think that's the problem is like he believed that he was doing everything perfect because not only did he have an ego. But this, like I said, this institutionalized American dream where if you try hard enough and do whatever you want, you know, you will be the greatest as long as you believe in yourself, as long as you're rooting yourself all the way to the end. You're going to be that guy that gets carried off the field. All right.
It's like it's like that dream of Rudy.
Right.
It's like, you don't have the height, you don't have the weight, you don't have the skill, but if you try, you can be the best and they can carry you off the field. It's like, yeah, but then Bo Jackson comes along
and trucks you
and literally has like zero football knowledge, but is so physically inclined to do it.
It's not even so much about the fact that there is somebody out there that's better than him. It's the fact that they thought that, yes, he's
that
great
guy.
And he's good, and they allowed him to do those surgeries
without getting reported.
Where he was drinking his own Kool-Aid, and yeah. And so that brings us to problem number 2 in this situation. So you have a terrible doctor performing terrible surgeries, okay? And now these institutions that, like Baylor Plano, the hospital in Texas.
The first one he worked at.
They rated him at $2.4 million. That's how much a neurosurgeon costs, and that's how much money they get, grants and stuff like that, to have him. So he's worth a ton of money. Okay.
And on paper, with all of his stuff, like they taught, like, all of like his classes in college and thesis and everything he's done, was like multiple pages, single spaced.
Yeah.
So like on paper, how he's presented, you'd think this dude's a genius. We should have hired him as soon as we could have.
Right.
But we're hiring him now.
Right. So he's worth all this money. They're happy to have him. They think he's going to be the greatest doctor ever. Starts botching his surgeries. They can't admit their faults because they lose their money. They lose their reputation. So they just allow him to quit.
Well, and I thought the show did really well with like the extra staff that they had in there during the surgeries, kind of showing like they're even looking at this guy like, what's going on? Why is he doing this?
The circulating nurse, the assistants, they're all just like looking at each other like, I mean, because you got to look at their skill level as well of sitting through X amount of surgeries, knowing how well it can be done, seeing it done routine, where like if you say, like, if I'm fusing your two vertebrae together, I've watched multiple doctors do the surgery in 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
Just ballpark. 3 hours in, we're still watching them do it, and it's like.
Right. Well, and not only that, like the show it was a great show. Like I said, I can't.
It's the best TV since Chernobyl.
Yeah, I can't not praise this show enough. But they couldn't go into the politics of an operating room as much as like podcast could, for instance.
Yeah.
But you have a guy there whose sole job is to monitor blood, and you're supposed to lose somewhere between 300 to 600 cc's of blood, not 1,700 cc's of blood. And if you lose that much, everybody in the operating room is going to know.
Yeah.
And in the podcast, they said, yes, there's politics where he's God of the operating room. He can't do no wrong. Whatever he does, it's because he thinks it's the best thing to do, and anybody to question him is just hindering the operating process. However, in reality, even through the operation that happened, there's been reports where people tried to physically restrain him from continuing to kill people while he was operating on them.
Well, they did a real good job. There was one of the scenes where the one that lost so much blood, where typically, like, I could see, like, if there was an emergency, somebody was brought in with gunshot wound or something. But in this scene, he's operating, and they just show the blood starts overflowing and spilling onto the floor.
Yeah.
That's kind of a sign.
That's a sign. I mean, like, you can only lose 300 cc's of blood.
Where, like, they even pulled in a trauma surgeon as, like, a consultant. Like, hey, get ready because you're going to be up next.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that was a red flag for me, and I don't, I'm obviously not qualified to run a hospital or anything like that, but when there's an error in a situation, okay, let's just say that you hire somebody to remodel your kitchen and you come back and it's just bass-ackwards, okay, and you're like, what happened? You start talking to the guy and he starts coming up with all these excuses saying, oh, well, my drywall guy did this, and the people didn't deliver the refrigerator.
The circulating nurse, the anesthesiologist, effed up.
Right.
That,
Yeah, and you hear all these excuses. This guy's not taking an iota of responsibility for himself. That's a red flag.
I mean, in the end, he's supposed to be the one in charge of the whole room, anyways.
Right.
I mean, even if it's like a one-off, like all right, this one's on the house. But when it's back to back surgeries, and you're just like, and it's literally everybody's fault but his. He did everything right. It's like, but did you though?
And so, as much as he's at fault, and he's easy to blame because he's the face of all those errors and the hands committing the errors, but the enable of those errors was the system, the hospitals, the people that put him there, the training, the people that released him from his residency, the fellowship that he went through that gave him this prestigiousness that he, all that stuff.
I mean, because you find out through the podcast and the show that these other places, like later on, they even knew about this stuff, and they were just like, "Oh, it was just one bad surgery, it was like 6 times in a row."
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, well, that was because of this reason or that reason. It wasn't because of him."
It's not like a major league slugger having a slump. That's not how this is supposed to be.
Right. And sports analogies to this is tough because, you have a terrible guy that gets too far in a baseball game. Whatever, you screw a baseball
It's like
team.
Billy Bean.
Yeah.
But if you
5-star recruit, should have been a Hall of Famer, bounced around from a bunch of teams, never batted above 250.
But you get a doctor that's amazing and he ends up butchering people and killing them. That's people who are dying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is a little different.
it's a tough analogy to really kind of grasp around.
The show does bring up 2 big things, or it does bring up one big thing, where the process of how doctors are reported
Is a nightmare.
is a nightmare and was called into question
Yeah.
by the other 2 because they're like, how is he continuing to get work
Right.
as a surgeon based on what we have seen and know? Because
Right.
they showed Dr. Henderson doing a played by Alec Baldwin botched job on one of his surgeries, and he's going through and even had it recorded, which he did in real life, had it recorded just in case, because he's like going through like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is the work of a madman. They didn't believe he was a real surgeon.
Henderson was a genius because he knew how much of an uphill battle he had. So not only was he recording the surgeries because he just assumed this was going to go to court. Mm-hmm. Second off,
thank God.
He didn't just record like somebody holding a cell phone. He brought in a camera guy and all this sort of stuff. Second off, when every conversation he had with the medical board or anybody, he recorded that as well. Because he knew that if he made accusations to people, it would be their words against his. And the medical board who signed this guy's license to operate on people would never admit that they were wrong.
Yeah.
And even to this day, they refuse to comment on the situation.
But it's crazy about Dunge. Like, even though his medical license was revoked in Texas, or he was not in good standing in Texas, he could have gotten a job as this neurosurgeon in 49 other states.
No, once the
potentially, they talked about it in the show.
Yes, that was the threat at one point when they suspended his license. Okay, when they revoked his license entirely.
That's a total U.S.
Yeah, like you can't. Now he could go to like Brazil or something like that. But they were afraid that could be a thing. So, but they looked into it and the whole lawyer thing, and that's why he's in prison for life right now.
Because in a legal aspect, it's a precedent-setting case. Because it's the first time a doctor's been in prison for medical malpractice.
It's not. See, that's the thing too. Is it wasn't malpractice? It was it was more of the elder
abuse.
Because that carried.
They carried a higher sentence.
Or like a.
And it's so weird that they had to try the case, explaining all the malpractice stuff that he did, but still charge him with something because the doctors are so protected this way. And the statistics at the end of the show, malpractice being the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States. I mean, like, you just listen to season 2 of the podcast or season 3. There are some doctors out there just like, how did they get so far? So
well, what kills me is you have people like Dr. Kirby and Henderson who were they're very high in their field and stuff too, and they're telling people this guy is killing and maiming people, and they're like, maybe. No, I don't know about that though.
Because people don't want to admit responsibility.
It's just like you got these 2 well-renowned doctors as well going around telling all the different places, investigating everything, and everybody's kind of sweeping under the rug.
Well-known neurosurgeon and a thoracic surgery, expert. It's like,
Yeah, it's another thing too is because one of the things that the podcast people were saying after the fact, they're like, what do listeners, what do patients need to do to vet their doctors better? And they're like, well, don't go online because all of that stuff
is fake,
is fabricated,
which they show in the show with him and Jerry Summers, his friend,
right? Deleting
stuff, making a video that shows him all these things, all these little awards. Making it look like to the public, like, if you need surgery for this is your only option. Everybody else sucks. You need that guy.
Right. And they said the best thing you can do is just get a second opinion and see if it makes anything sensible to what the original doctor said. So, and then another thing they said to do is talk to the nurses and say, would you let this guy operate on you? So That might be a thing to say. I don't know. The nursing staff of hospitals are like the redheaded stepchilds because they run the whole organ. They're the backbone of the organization. Yeah. But, a doctor bursts in the doors and just like,
this and this and this. And
polish my shoes.
And stuff.
Do all this other stuff. They have to. So
it's a very weird hierarchy.
Yeah.
And system that takes place in hospitals.
They are the most trained people in the world, for their job, for their specific field. That's why it would be like you're going to go tour a nuclear facility and you see like the Einstein equivalent of a nuclear scientist just beating on a bomb with a wrench. And you're like, I don't think that you should do that, but I'm not the nuclear scientist. So
I'm a little
Yeah.
apprehensive about what I'm watching here.
So,
I feel like somebody should stop you.
Yeah. But the grave detail that they go into in the show actually scales back of what really happened. Like all the hardware floating in people's backs.
Well, yeah. Like you're talking about with the whole beating on a atomic bomb. They were talking about this guy drilling in, like putting
into muscle.
Yeah. And in the court case there, he's like, you could tell the difference. Like when you cut a steak, when you start cutting through the steak, when you hit that T-bone, you kind of notice.
Yeah.
So
it's the same thing in surgery.
It makes sense. And he's like, Dunches is like, well, there was too much blood. People are like, exactly. Yeah. That's too much blood.
Why was there too much blood? Well, he had a tumor. No, you ripped out his neck muscles.
Yeah, they'd say, well, you cut an artery. No, the guy couldn't give me enough suction for 1,700 cc's of blood. And then he'd say, oh, he bled so much because of the anesthesiologist. He always blamed the anesthesiologist by the end of his surgeries.
Mm-hmm. And anesthesiology, the amount of schooling they have to go through just for anesthesiology is insane.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, they're just as likely to kill you if they did it wrong as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like the variables that are involved with putting somebody under and keeping them under and not in pain or not realizing what's going on with their body is really tremendous.
Right. Yeah. So that was a thing in the documentary about that and these incidents. They had an anesthesiologist that Dunch accused on there talking. And, she said it happens. Anesthesiologists make errors and stuff like that. But not like what he was describing. Mm-hmm. And, so it, like, you watch the show, and you're like, if you have no understanding of the show whatsoever, you're like, this is completely fictional. There's
no way somebody willfully was like this.
And then you do some research, you watch the documentary, you listen to the podcast, and you're just like, oh,
it's worse. It's worse.
I can't believe this.
I mean,
this man,
supposedly these are
he's doing laundry right now in a prison in Dallas.
Well, supposedly, like the actors and stuff based their stuff off of what the guys were really like, as far as personality.
As best they could.
Christian Slater.
I want to meet Dr. Kirby. He seems like a cool guy.
That guy seems like a G.
The podcast has an episode where Kirby and Slater interview each other, and that's pretty
awesome.
Cool. So, yeah. Slater seems like a pretty chill guy nowadays. He seems like a...
I liked Alec Baldwin from Hunt for Red October, and that was pretty much it. And, like, other stuff, I'm just like, you're just like a bombastic jerk. Yeah. And, like, Christian Slater's like, you're always in bad movies. Yeah. I watched this show, and I was like, man, those guys are really good, though.
Yeah, they are.
Well, like I said on the podcast that we reviewed it on, I just liked when there's one episode that ends, Christian Slater walks in, and him and Alec Baldwin are sitting there looking at the guy as he's, like, being honored or whatever as this new doctor for this hospital. Alec Baldwin comes in and kind of frowns. Christian Slater just smiles like, we got him.
He's like, yeah, we're going to beat him up.
Yeah. And like I said in the podcast, Kirby, like when he gets interviewed, he was legitimately thinking about hiring people to come and like maim this guy.
So he could never operate again.
Like that's what it takes to save a life because, I mean, he had already killed people at this point.
And they talk about how, like, anatomy-wise, like him operating on the wrong parts of the spine. Mm-hmm. And, like, they're like, any 2-year resident would know this. This is basic human anatomy. If I tell you this and this, you should easily be able to go here and here on the body. He's off by inches.
I don't know. Maybe they just did this for dramatic effect, but like they show one part where he's doing a surgery and Kelsey Grammer is like his doctor or his...
And he grabs his hand.
Yeah, like moves his hand where it's supposed to go. I'm hoping they didn't go that far in real life, but who knows?
See, that's the thing is another thing was the Tennessee university that he came from.
Yeah, he went to the University of Tennessee.
They, like the podcast people had a hard time getting any information, and a lot of those records mysteriously disappeared and stuff like that. Did. So, what really happened during his fellowship and his residency there, who knows?
Also, I'm saying, they show that in the video or in the movie or the TV show, but I really hope that's not how it went.
I mean, he couldn't tell his rights from his lefts.
Yeah.
That much was obvious, and people saying that in real life was like, yeah, he'd have to think about it. Like the thing about the hole in the scrubs, remember that?
Yeah.
That was actual real.
Yeah.
You know, and then the nurse, the X-ray nurse or whatever that was reporting that stuff, that was real. They were like, because that guy was like, I kept looking at his left ass cheek through that hole, and I was just like, he's wearing the same scrub for like 5 days in a row now. You know?
The circulating nurse.
Yeah. And he's just like, who does that? You know, and you know, like that's like the first kind of like weird red flag introduction to the podcast, and you just find out why this guy is just so off and creepy and crazy and weird, and you really can't tell, even at the end of the podcast, even at the end of the TV show. You can't really tell if he's a sociopath, if he's just
incompetent,
delusionally crazy and incompetent. You know, who knows?
Well, I mean, he was so full of himself. He didn't even want his own defense attorney
to defend him. He wanted to defend himself.
Yeah, and he didn't want to admit that he had done wrong. He said it would ruin his legacy. And she's like, I'm trying to keep you from going to jail for life.
Yeah, and when his defense attorney like starts grilling him on questions like a prosecutor, and he just like loses it and starts yelling at her, and she's just like, "Yep,
yeah,
that's what'll happen in a courtroom."
The lawyer lady, I forgot her name.
I can imagine having to represent that guy.
The DA, the assistant.
I think it was Amy
Shugart.
Peel, maybe.
No, her last name was Shugart in the show.
Shugart. Yeah.
Okay.
There was an interesting interview with her after all of it, and the podcast lady asked, like, what are the chances that he gets out of jail? Because he's in for life now. What are the chances he gets out of prison? And she's like, none, because he had one appeal left, and all it was an appeal to say that his previous lawyer was incompetent. And she was like, that was an amazing defense lawyer. You know,
I think he comes up for like parole in like 2045.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of time.
But he's doing laundry right now, and
yeah,
these clothes aren't clean. It's the bleach's fault.
Yeah,
it's not my fault.
Yeah, it'll probably be something like that. So he's just chilling in prison for the rest of his life. It
was an amazing show.
Wild.
My parents watched it too, and my mom's like, I don't have the heart to tell your grandma because my grandma has to have surgery for something, semi-serious. And my mom's like, I don't have the heart to tell her about the show or what I've seen. She's like, I don't even want to go to surgery now. I'm like, it's okay.
That's what the podcast people kept saying. Like, look, we're not
knocking doctors and surgeons,
but just get a second opinion. Do your research. Yeah. Don't throw your flesh and able body into the hands of some stranger. You know. And I guess that makes sense.
Invite him over for dinner. Vet the man. See how.
Well, you said because the second season on the podcast, they're talking about somebody that diagnosed somebody for cancer, so they sent him to.
Yeah, he's an oncologist, a hematologist-oncologist, and this guy.
I've been fatigued.
It's Fada, and this guy, so this is where the greed side of the medical field can kind of go askew. He has his clinics where he can diagnose people and all this stuff. He has his own lab stuff that he has,
like the whole package.
And then he has this like mecca of oncology where they will give you chemo and whatever. And
so he's getting money from each part.
Yeah. He gets the insurance money because of what they have.
Right. And he's just diagnosing everybody with everything. And if they have a problem, the medication comes through his circuit. He's got his own masseuses that will come and make you feel better, but that you have to pay for.
Yeah,
and all sorts of stuff.
I read one about one lady. She got diagnosed with like stage whatever it was, given like you have pretty much half the year. Goes through chemo, all this stuff. Irreversible damages have been done because of radiation. Goes to another doctor, and they're just like, you never had cancer.
Right. Yeah. There's one lady who had cancer, and it was so far gone, but he demanded that she continue on chemo, and she died her last 6 months miserable, just in suffering pain, whereas any other doctor had taken her off of chemo and just say, enjoy the last bit of your time while you still can, and then robbed that of her life and her offspring and stuff like that because he wanted more money.
Yeah.
So that guy, he's in prison for 45 years, but still it's just disgusting how far it gets, So it's about greed and ego, and I think that's the problem with American health system. It's a problem with the American idealism in health system. And I don't want to get too political and preachy, but that's how it gets factored out sometimes. It's just, it sucks. It sucks that people who work, a tech job can't pay for cancer treatments and stuff like that. And that's the world that we live in. So,
and we're not trying to get blowhardy and be like, we need socialized medicine or any of this other nonsense.
Right.
It's just the factual reality of how the medical world is right now.
Yeah, and then take advantage of people. I mean,
because like you said, it's all protected by one over the other, to where it's hard to, if anything is wrong, it's hard to get results.
Or even that guy who jacked up the prices for insulin.
Yeah, screwed that guy. I hope he dies someday. Like some insane amount of dollars, like $800 for something that would cost equivalent of like $30.
Well, because you can give addicts and stuff free medicine. But
we can give methadone.
People need insulin, and you got to pay $700.
Yeah, or an EpiPen or something like that. Mm-hmm. But no, it's very much like that. And see, like, the doctors don't care about how much they jack up the price because the insurance are the victims, not the customers.
Yeah, but you have to pay the insurance still.
But you have to pay the insurance. The insurance jacks up the premiums, and the people who don't have insurance, they have to pay those same prices.
Yeah,
like, look, that's where you get your Walter Whites from and stuff like that. So. It's just a weird situation.
There was an interesting bit on Scrubs where, like, in the hospital world, they talk about, like, people who didn't have insurance or whatever. If they had somebody who died in the hospital, they would put that person under surgery or for surgery under that person's name because they did have insurance.
Huh.
So I don't know if that's I've heard that sometimes has happened, but I don't know if that's a big factual thing in the hospital circuit.
I have no idea.
Where it's like, oh, this guy doesn't have insurance, he needs this to live.
Yeah.
This guy just kicked the bucket and he had great insurance.
Yeah.
I don't know. Smudging of the paperwork, and there we go.
It's sad that it has to come to that.
It is. That doctors have to try to do that to save people's lives.
Yeah, but like I said, the show is what?
8 episodes.
Yeah, 8 episodes.
It's
about an hour a piece.
It's a great binge. It's just, oh man, it's a descent into madness, But there is a great sensation of validation at the end, the final episode.
Which, I mean, in the first episode they show it because he's in prison.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, it's an actual true event, so people are probably Googling as they go along watching the show,
and they know he's doing life.
So they like I said, the narrative can kind of be a little jumpy here and there. It's hard to track, to keep up with because of his time in college, his time in residency, his time in,
before he moved to Dallas, when he started in Dallas, the current present timeline, they do jump around, and it is kind of hard to picture.
I think he actually has 2 kids.
He has 2 kids in real life.
Instead of just
I think it's with the same lady.
Right.
It's definitely not as easy to pick out the timeline as it was with True Detective, where it's just how much hair does Woody Harrelson have.
Yeah.
Well, the modern day and the past, you could tell how fat the guy had gotten.
Yeah, he got fat. And you look at Christopher Dunch in real life, you look at his college photo and his mugshot, 2 different people. I mean, cocaine's a hell of a drug. That's all I can say. So, it's just rough.
I didn't do things just to do them. Well, I remember doing that.
What killed me is, like, his best friend is paralyzed for life. He never apologized, and the friend just, like, stood by him. I'm sorry. If one of you paralyzed me for life, I'm throwing you under the bus immediately.
No, you're not.
Well, yes. Yes.
There's an
not
interview.
Physically.
So, like...
not physically, no.
I think her name is Laura Beale, the lady who did the podcast. She tried hard to get Jerry Summers in the podcast and refused. Well, before he died, like last year.
Yeah, he died last year.
So she got him to talk, and he wanted to give his account on and it's like a 30-minute little podcast blurb, and he honestly blames himself. He's like, I could have stopped him, and he's mad that he didn't stop him when he could have, and he thinks that everything happens for a reason, kind of thing, and it's kind of depressing.
Well, what kills me is he knew all this stuff all along. He knew he was faking like this guy's great stuff, and yet he still went along with it.
Well, he said at one point in college, he was graduating and allowed to go to Dallas. And like before they were moving to come out there, he told Jerry, Christopher Dunch told Jerry, I don't think I'm ready. Like, as in, he doesn't, and he thought that Christopher said, I'm not ready to leave everything I have here and move on. Mm-hmm. And he encouraged him through it, but he said, looking back, I think it's more of, I'm not ready to actually be a doctor because I'm not. Yeah. And you know, he was right. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I wish I would have talked to him more about that. That was the only time his ego didn't like supersede. Lapse. Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine being a doctor, you need pretty steady hands. Yeah. This guy took a massive amount of drugs, according to the stuff. So I don't know how he just. Mm-hmm. I don't know how he functioned.
That's another thing. If I was your boss and I said I need a pee test because I suspect you're on drugs, and it took you 3 weeks to give me pee.
I'm suspicious.
Yes,
after the first 2 days.
That's a problem.
Actually, after day one, I'm like, you're out. You're clearly up to some.
Considering the like secretary or whatever she was like, okay, I can do it today
now, and he's like,
yeah.
Well, you know.
Yeah, and he kept calling and saying all these excuses. I was just like, who would put up with that stuff?
They wouldn't let me in. I forgot my badge. It's like, you never left your house.
An Army private gets paid like $30,000 a year. If they don't pee within the day, the 24 hours of their urinalysis test, that could be their career, the end of it. And we take that way more seriously, obviously, when we do this $2.4 million neurosurgeon. So
who's cutting people open.
Yeah. That's it.
And
like I said, the system is very biased towards people who are "quote unquote" made. So
I mean, there's other jobs where they'll take you immediately, so to get to do your analysis.
Yeah. Ours,
yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to go there, but
yeah, no, I don't have a problem. I think people who have a problem with drug tests are people who are on drugs.
Yeah.
So, but it's whatever. So, it's just you just see like how crazy it is.
All the fail safes that should have like picked it up on
so
this
many
guy.
So many things
that he made it past, or like they were going to sue him or whatever, and he ended up like his lawyers ended up giving like a bill of referral.
Yeah, and
from Baylor.
I get it. He was a deviant trying to work his way through the system to get what's best for him, and through caution.
Thought he was like a god,
but you still got to have balance and checks in the system for people who are like that. Could you imagine if
But because there was no substantiated investigation, he was never reported to the medical board.
Right. Oh, there was one psych eval that he had.
Yeah, there was one investigation that didn't even go the mandated amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. For law enforcement, for instance, okay, you do one thing that's like kind of over the top. You do one thing that's egregious.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't go to prison.
Yeah.
So,
depending on how it is, or what the context of what happened, most of the time it's you're either on brutally thin ice or you're out. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's just it's insane. I don't know. There's not much else to talk about. I'd be interested if people who have watched the show I think the reason why I am so fascinated with all of this is because you always looked at doctors with such reverence, and
they can do no wrong.
They can do no wrong, and do no harm. They have all these like almost
the Hippocratic
oath, cultish oaths and stuff like that, like a fraternity kind of thing that they have going for them. And then you see them botch up stuff just like anybody else.
Look, I was in a fraternity. Some of these are fraternity are freaking morons,
right? So to see that, just like a doctor would, anybody else, a dude working retail or something like that, it's insane, and it floors me that there's a system out there that's just as flawed as any other system. Mm-hmm. So,
and one that should not be.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
if it happens once, understandable. It's inevitability. Mm-hmm. That's gonna happen to somebody. But when it continuously happens,
but it's scary that it's in the medical profession, because in most people's lives, the biggest thing that scares us is getting sick.
Right.
And getting sick in a way we don't know ourselves, like, oh, I can just, have some Alka-Seltzer, some water, sleep it off, a hot shower, and I could be all right.
Right.
But when you have stuff that's persisting and you don't understand or what's going on, you go to them and they're like, you have this, or you have this, here's what we can do. And you're taking it as like the word of God, like this is the final line.
It's weird that Texas, of all places, was like the groundbreaking. You know, we're gonna go after a doctor who's.
You said this happened in 2012.
The court case was
2015.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
But I couldn't remember what the time
surgeries and events that were happening started.
12 to 13 or something.
Okay.
Because then, like, he disappeared to, like, Colorado for a
Okay.
while. And then, like, the last day or whatever. It was, like, the last day, like, the last month of the statute of limitations to indict him and arrest him.
I forgot all about that.
They got him.
Yeah.
Because he came down to visit his kids.
Yeah. Yeah. But, like, Texas, of all places. You'd think that a more liberal state would be kind of on that, but they probably...
It's Texas. The people who have an express lane for the death penalty.
Yeah. Yeah, but you think that, like, well, I'm a doctor. Who are you to judge what I do?
You didn't go to school for 4,000 years. You don't
Yeah.
wear a white lab coat.
You know, like, you'd think Texas, of all places, would be the one that would be like, well, he's a doctor, you know. You know,
I didn't go to med school. I mean, how am I supposed to know?
as opposed to, like, New York, where people can question everything and do whatever the
hell they want.
Exactly.
Well, now they can under Giuliani. No.
Well, there you go. So, I don't know. I thought this was a fascinating show. I hope they do more.
I hope they
stuff
do
like
a
this.
second season based on the second bit of the podcast.
Yeah, Fada would be interesting. The podcast is great. It's Wandery's podcast.
I started listening to it.
Yeah, and I don't usually plug stuff, but
We're plugging this.
This is my favorite thing, my favorite podcast, by far. So,
like we said earlier, this is some of the best television since Chernobyl.
yeah. So I was really
The show, not
This,
the event.
yeah, not the event, not the 1986 reactor 4 going nuclear and meltdowns.
Yeah. It's weird when you get older. You're so invested in like true fiction, true life,
True stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I'd hit that point in my life. At like 28 years old, I'm like, man, this is really well done. Like the facts. The facts.
Yeah, when you start watching World War II documentaries, you're like, oh.
I've been watching World War II documentaries for like 20 years, man.
Oh, you're old.
I was old when I was 8.
You're older than us. What are you talking about?
It was like my grandpa like, what do you want to watch? I tell you what you want to watch. You want to watch World at War on VHS in black and white. That's what we're watching.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. I think that's nothing much else to talk about. But I'd be interested if people have seen this. They could reach out on our social mediums. Tell us what they thought. What scared them.
None of you will. Bet you won't. Bet you won't reach out to us. No balls.
Cool.
Or ovaries.
Well, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Every time.